Very good morning, sir. Sir, unmute. You just unmute yourself.
Hello, how are you, Neeraj?
Yes, fine. I'm fine.
Good. What time is it for you now? About 5 p.m.
Yes,
right?
yes. It's almost 2-3 minutes is there. So you are
Yeah, good.
very
I,
punctual
I
for that.
yeah, I believe the conference is going on quite well.
Yes, it was a wonderful conference. So we
Yeah,
received a very good, huge response in terms of the contributions and all that. So that was a
yeah,
great conference. Yeah.
that's great. I'm very happy to. I wish I was able to be there in person.
Yeah, yes. We were also expecting, but surely that in the coming time, I just want from your side, if it is possible to spare some more time. We are actually having some centers here at MDI, especially in both the Gurgaon and Murshidabad. Especially,
In sustainability?
yes. We were having that.
Namaste,
Not
Professor.
many things. Yeah.
Good evening, Professor Rachit. Namaste, Professor.
So we will start, sir, within 2-3 minutes. We are just
No problem.
Yeah.
Whenever.
Yeah.
How many how many participants do you have for this session?
For this session, sir, there are many, those who are,
Okay.
yes, maybe around 35, 40, 50,
Sure,
something
sure.
like that. All
I was just
participating.
curious.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So there will be something here. Let me.
For sharing your presentation?
Yes.
Yes. There is to be a share a screen in the down.
Yeah, I'll do that
Yes.
in 1 second.
You just check that and accordingly. Yes, perfectly visible, sir. Yeah.
Is it good?
Yes. Wonderful.
And today is the concluding day for the conference. Is that right?
Yes. It's a 3-day conference. So today is the last day. Before your session, there are the 2 parallel sessions were actually going on. One is in the finance area, and the one is in the marketing area.
In the marketing. Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Great. Very good. Yeah. When I committed to it many months ago, Neeraj, I was supposed to be on a sabbatical leave, so I was hoping that I will be visiting India that time. So it will be, very easy for me to be able to go there in person. Then, of course, COVID happened and everything went fall apart. So, but I am still happy that it worked out, even if virtually.
Yes, sir. This is what is the you can say the advantage of the technology.
Oh, absolutely, isn't it? That's great. I don't even want to travel for conferences anymore. This year has taught us so much that we really don't lose much without traveling.
Yes. Even we gain more, sir. Here at MDI Murshidabad, yes. Here at MDI Murshidabad, we conducted the 3 conferences this year. Yeah. And this one is the 3rd one.
Yeah, and people who are otherwise able to not visit, they can obviously plug in and listen.
Even, sir, the presence is more and the contribution is also very high. This is one very positive and positive perspective of that.
Yeah, that's great.
Sometimes it's difficult to travel, but due to that virtual platform, it makes the things more easier.
Yeah. So Murshidabad and MDI is how old?
Sir, as you must be aware that the parent organization is that MDI Gurgaon campus, which is...
I know the campus. I didn't know that.
Yes. So that was established somewhere in 1973 with the initiative of that IFCI for providing the training to that working executives and all that. But
Yeah,
the
okay.
PTP program launched in 94 in Gurgaon campus. And
Here in Murshidabad?
no, in Gurgaon. And
Okay.
then this campus operational in 2014.
14. So yeah, 7 years. Yeah, that's great. Very good.
So, Professor Yukti, do we start or we have to wait for 2-3 more minutes? We have buffer
Yes,
time, I think.
so we have I think most of us has joined, like they have joined, and there are like participants here.
Yes. So we can start, huh?
We are going to start. Yes.
Yes. So you just proceed, and accordingly.
Yes, definitely. So very good evening and good morning to our keynote speaker. On the behalf of MDIM family, I, Dr. Yukti Sharma, Assistant Professor Marketing at MDIM, extend warm greetings to our esteemed keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Rajat Panwar, track chairs, participants, faculty, non-faculty colleagues, and endeared students. After delightful 3 days of series of exciting presentations on several intellectually stimulating research works, we have now finally come to the valedictory ceremony of ICCBP 2021. With an objective to provide a forum to academicians, practitioners, and researchers to deliberate upon the relevant theories, concepts, and models emerging in the management domain, ICCBP 2021 witnessed participation from countries across the globe. Over a span of 3 days, we have witnessed more than 70, precisely 74 papers across the 7 tracks of marketing, finance, OB and HR, operations and SCM, IT, business strategy, entrepreneurship, and case studies. We extend heartiest congratulations to all the presenters. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Neeraj Singhal, Conference Chair and Assistant Professor, Strategic Management, to introduce our keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Rajat Panwar, Associate Professor, Walker College of Business, Boone, USA. Over to Professor Neeraj. Thank you.
Yeah. Very good evening to one and all present here. Very good morning to Professor Rajat, and good morning and good afternoon to all those who are into the different time zone and is the part of this particular specific valedictory ceremony. So, sir, I welcome you on behalf of the MDIM family and on behalf of the ICCBP 2021. Dr. Rajat Pawar is Associate Professor, Sustainable Business Management at Walker College of Business, Appalachian State University, Bonn. Dr. Pawar has a versatile academic background that includes researching and teaching across the different part of the globe, including Asia, Europe, North America, and South America. He has earned 2 doctoral degrees, one in the forest sector, business sustainability from the Oregon State University, USA, and the other one is in strategic management from Grenoble École de Management, France. Previous to this, joining the Walker College of Business, he was associated with the University of British Columbia, Vancouver, Canada. Dr. Pawar has written the numerous academic papers in the area of the sustainability and the related. Dr. Pawar has written numerous academic and policy articles to edited books and has mentored half a dozen doctoral students. He served on the editorial board of multiple leading journals in CSR and corporate sustainability field. His work has been featured, cited in multiple times in the Forbes magazine. Dr. Pawar, you can refer to Dr. Pawar's consultancy assignment and all that by referring to his web page. So we welcome you on behalf of the MDI. Now I request you to kindly deliver that keynote address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Professor Singhal, for such a warm and heartening introduction. And thank you, Professor Sharma, for setting the stage for doing that. I'm very, very happy and very honored to be able to join you this morning. Is my voice coming across okay?
Yes, perfectly okay, sir.
Okay, good. And I wish I was able to be there in person and attend many of the sessions, but because of the time zones and other ongoing commitments, I was not able to not only come in there, but also sometimes not plug in. But I know through you and others that the conference so far has been wonderful, and obviously many sessions have and scholars have deliberated upon a number of important issues that we face as a business community, as a scholars community, and of course a community of concerned citizens. So I know that one of the themes around this, which you have convened this conference is sustainability, and specifically the idea of how corporations can contribute to achievement of sustainability. So in that domain, I would talk about that corporate sustainability, the way it has been practiced so far has turned out to be ineffective. It's not producing the results we expected it to. And for that reason, I argue that we need a paradigm shift. So let me start. And in the outset, let me mention that every or most of the corporate sustainability presentations start with a picture like that. For example, CEOs are committing to making the planet a better place. CEOs are putting money down and they are coming together for stakeholder dialogues and all those kind of things. Or sometimes the presentations start with such grandiose illustrations that a company like Amazon is pledging billions of dollars to contribute to climate change. To address climate change and all those societal and environmental issues. Or sometimes the presentations start with cutting edge innovations such as Elon Musk coming out with a Tesla, or an Indian company coming out with such grand scale innovation. I'm not going to talk about that because this is what we have heard many times. Sometimes people start corporate sustainability presentations with making these bold claims and very portraying very rosy pictures that corporations are becoming quote unquote green, and also that customers are going green, and that the demand for sustainable products has been on the rise, and sustainability reporting and all those kind of instruments that show that corporations are engaging in sustainability that are also rising. In fact, I am also not going to talk about that. What I'm going to talk about, though, is what is often not talked about, and which is captured in this picture. This picture shows that since 1991, 92, when we first held the Rio Earth Summit, which essentially fueled the idea of corporate sustainability. Since then, that was 30 years ago, and up until now, and this figure is sort of dated, but still the trend continues to be the same, that the global emissions and global industrial emissions have been continuously rising. And this is what we call the golden period of corporate sustainability. I will also talk about that the carbon dioxide concentration in the environment in just these 20 years period has been continuously increasing. And this is again, to repeat, this is again the period of the golden era of corporate sustainability. And the result is this. So the question I ask is that how is it possible that on one hand we are saying that corporations and customers are going green, and on the other hand, the environment is continually worsening? That is the question that is the basic thesis of my deliberation today and of my current ongoing work in corporate sustainability. These two pictures put together, they emphasize the need to pause and reflect. How old do you have to be before you know what is going on? It is really time to be critical that are these initiatives, are these claims real, authentic, and effective? And clearly they are not. Otherwise, we would see a very different kind of picture. So the question then I raise is why corporate sustainability efforts have remained ineffective. And I argue that there are three reasons for that. One is that these efforts are rather shallow. And by shallow, I mean that majority of corporate sustainability initiatives, or I would say all corporate sustainability initiatives, except for a few isolated examples here and there, they are firm level efforts. They are conducted at the level of the corporation rather than at the level of value chain. Whereas we know now that the majority of emissions actually occur at the value chain level, which is called the scope 3 emissions. Just to give you an illustrative example, Unilever's total 96% of its total emissions occur actually in as scope 3 emissions. Just for those people who are not aware of this, what is this scope 3? Scope 1 is what happened at the level of a corporation. Scope 2 is when you also include the emissions associated with energy consumption of your corporation. And scope 3 means when you take into account the emissions of your suppliers as well as your consumers. So entire value chain. What we do see is so far that that corporations are just focusing on what happens within the boundaries of their corporations, disregarding the other important levels. Scope 3 is where our efforts should be, but they are not. The second is that these initiatives, these corporate sustainability efforts, these are rather narrow in nature. And what do I mean by that is that the ongoing paradigm of corporate sustainability is that it should be win-win. Many of you may have heard about the business case for corporate sustainability. The idea being that, well, we should be, or corporations should be, strive sustainability because it helps them advance their business interests. Sometimes cost reduction, sometimes branding, premium pricing, public reputation, public relations, and all those kind of things, which is fine. But the problem is that all sustainability problems, all environmental problems cannot be so easily aligned with the business interest. So you can pick obviously low-hanging fruits, but once that has happened, then there are inherent trade-offs between financial returns and sustainability efforts. And corporate sustainability scholars are very uncomfortable talking about it because majority of the literature has been trying actually too hard to establish that there is a business case. Yeah, there is business case in some ways and for some environmental issues, but not always. For example, biodiversity protection, which is one of the most critical environmental challenges that we face, there is really not a business case for those corporations, or at least we have not been able to find out business case for those corporations that directly do not rely on bioresources. So for example, forest industries, agriculture industries, in those cases, we can see that, yeah, there is a business case, but for other industries, it's hard to identify, let alone capture. So what happens as a result is that the wide range or the vast array of environmental issues just remain untouched by organizational action. So the ongoing corporate sustainability efforts remain narrow. So shallow, narrow, and finally, I argue that they are beguiling. They present an oversimplified version of a deeply complex reality. So, we promote some initiatives, but in the process, what we do is we promote green consumerism, not what we would call sustainable consumption, which is what was discussed in Rio in 1992. So as a result, what we do see is that there are lots of feel-good sentiments that are aroused, but systemic problems are in fact covered up. Let me give an example of recycling from the United States. And I'm sorry, I wanted to give an example from India, but my understanding of Indian context is rather dated. So I thought that I would draw upon an example that I'm more familiar with and more current with. So sorry for not being able to contextualize it in the Indian context, but look at recycling. And I am not sure if this graph is as clear as it should be. But anyway, what I want to show here is that these two circles, one on my left is landfilling, and the other one on the my right upside is recycling. So despite so much hype and so much efforts and so much investment going on in the United States for at least two decades. 25% of the overall waste is recycled, whereas 52 still goes on in landfilling. And I'm not saying that is a bad figure in itself. It is an inconvenient truth, but it's okay. 25%, we are making progress. But what is actually an even more inconvenient truth is that about 40 to 65 of that 25%, that is America's municipal solid waste, that has been happening in other countries. And what is wrong with that, from an environmental perspective, obviously, is that first of all, there is transportation involved. So first you collect garbage, then you sort it, then you assemble it together, then you transport it, let's say to China. Then many of those factories in China are run on coal, or obviously not a very clean source of energy. In fact, many of the material is not even recycled, it is just dumped in those countries. So what America has been doing is essentially hiding its garbage, or if it is recycled, the process of recycling is quite energy intensive anyway, transportation, then not so clean energy sources there. And then there are, I'm not even talking about, other human resource related practices such as child labor and all that. And then it comes back, and that is yet another environmental cost involved. So the point is that some people have conducted some scenario analysis and actually found out that the environmental damage is more when recycling is done rather than when it is not done. Not always the case, but in many cases that could well be the outcome. So a few years ago, China said, because of their economy becoming more sophisticated, and them not interested anymore in just cleaning up the garbage of the world. So China said that, thank you very much, America, we are not interested in this business anymore. You keep your garbage, you keep your waste. If you want us to recycle for you, then you will have to follow these 2, 3, 4 conditions. One of them was that please clean everything. You know those pizza boxes that you send us? As long as there is no pizza leftovers in it, then we will take the cardboard, but we are not going to clean everything for you. So China, and then there were some other provisions also. The point is that it has started to become a little bit of a contentious issue between the United States and China. And at that time, people would think that that was a good opportunity for American companies and for the country as a whole to innovate and say that, yeah, it is time for us to start to develop our own, recycling capacities. That did not happen. What happened is that US cities started to burn recyclables after China banned the imports of recyclable products. And that is what I mean by the beguiling, is that, well, first of all these companies were keeping us under an impression that recycling is such a good thing that no environmental cost is involved. I just told you about what happens in the factories there. I have seen in many other places, not just China, in Malaysia and Indonesia and everywhere. You can see that half of that quote unquote garbage or recyclable material is actually just floating around in their front yards. I was talking to an industry executive in the United States and asked, like, what is going on? Why don't we start recycling here? And this is the answer I got from that individual. Says the person, once it gets to scale, it will hopefully spur innovation. Look at this. So our strategy here has been, we are waiting for it to scale. That means that we are waiting more garbage to be produced, and hope is our strategy, which is obviously not the best solution in the world. So just to give an idea that how beguiling these initiatives could be. So what I'm saying is that corporate sustainability efforts have remained ineffective because they are shallow, they are narrow in scope, and they are beguiling in nature. They hide more than they reveal. And then look at where we have to go. Our targets are not easy. This is one of the reports that McKinsey produced. Actually, it's not a McKinsey report. It's a McKinsey summary of a scientific report. So in order to achieve what is commonly considered to be a safe, green warming pathway is 1.5 degrees C pathway. By 2050, our trajectory, our curve of reducing carbon dioxide should be as the blue line looks like. We are in 2020. Our current trend suggests the middle line, and these are dramatic efforts that we have already taken in the last few years, except for the United States, because of the political environment in the last 4 or 5 years has not been very much climate friendly here. But Europe has been doing great things. China, India, many other countries have been making significant progresses. But even still, our trajectory ought to be what the blue line looks like. And that is a significant change that we need to be making. And if you look at our past environmental performance, I just showed you those two graphs, it's not even looking like, well, I mean, we are going to make it worse rather than following this sharp carbon dioxide emissions decline. So what do we need? And that is where the crux of my talk comes, that we need a cure. Cure is an acronym that I'm using for a framework that I have developed in last few years, and not just me, but my entire research team as well as other collaborators. So by cure, we means that we need to first focus on the base of it will be collective carbon reduction, and that means value chain level carbon emissions need to be curtailed. So we should focus on scope 3 rather than just scope 1, and in some cases scope 2, which is still low, but not enough. Second, the U part, that CU, umbrella approach to mitigate environmental impact, and I'll talk about it in a moment. The third one is R, which is removal of piled up carbon, and E means or denotes expansion of market. So these are the 4 things we argue in our ongoing research and demonstrate through some grounded theory and interpretive results that these CURE, these CURE, these 4 actions are needed so that we can come close to achieving this kind of a trajectory which is required of us. Okay, let me talk about these rather quickly one by one. Collective carbon reduction would require that we first of all do some sort of a full scope emissions accounting. Some of this is starting at a structural level, at governance level, through new organizational forms such as B corporations in the United States and Europe. They are becoming kind of like a new cool thing. I'm not sure, I have not looked into if they have expanded into Indian market also yet, but if it has not happened, I'm quite confident it will happen any day. Relocation is another important aspect. I mean, there are some places in the world which are continuing to be laggards in environmental standards. I contributed a thought piece in California Management Review last year and argued that it is time to develop local production and supply networks, at least in some commodities. The other aspect is decentralization. We have been focusing a bit too much on large corporations, especially in the United States, but we need to focus on small businesses also. SBA stands for Small Business Association in the United States. Globally speaking, 60 to 65, or in many cases, 70% pollution happens at this small level, small companies level. Whereas the focus is always, whether it is policy or media or public, focus is always on that big Enron or big Chevron or Shell, and all these energy corporations, which is good, but we also need to decentralize our conversation. And in many cases, as inconvenient as it might sound to many business scholars, we also need to start thinking in terms of degrowth. We have been operating under this paradigm that let's not worry about sustainability and continue to consume as much we can. In the Eastern society, it has most of the consumption has been happening because of population explosion. In the Western society, it has been happening because of explosive consumerism. One way or the other, that East versus West debate is separate, but my point is that we need to overall focus on reducing consumption, whether through changes in lifestyle or in overall number of people that actually consume. Thomas Ruley, a colleague, has written a wonderful article that came out in Harvard Business Review last year, and argued how degrowth shouldn't scare businesses. In fact, there could be degrowth-oriented business models that companies can leverage. For example, the ideas around sufficiency, the ideas around servicizing rather than production all the time, and those kind of things. India happened to be a society like that. We used to build to last. Now globalization and this American paradigm of fast turnover of the products, fast turnaround in product life cycles, and planned obsolescence. For example, these iPhones. Every 6 months there is a new version, and people just race to buy a new one. And I don't know where the old one goes. Most of it, I'm pretty confident, is just going to landfills. And even if it is recycled, I told you the recycled story already. So what I'm trying to say is that when Apple is producing a new version of an iPhone every 6 months, then I'm not going to believe that shiny sustainability report that Apple produces by saying that we did cut emissions there, and there. Why you are producing so much every 6 months? Anyway, we need to think about collective carbon reduction. And now let me come to umbrella approach. And I will not get into details of it. I'm a forestry person, so I can spend all day talking about it. But the idea is this. Focusing on carbon is not going to help too much with carbon. We need to think in terms of what ecologists call Earth system. We not only need to think about atmosphere, but biosphere, all these kind of carbon cycles. How do we deal with our oceans? How do we deal with soil quality? How do we deal with nitrogen cycle? How do we deal with forest resources and things of that nature? So not obsessively focused on the air quality as such, only that, but taking what we call the science of the total environment. And this is not what most corporations are doing. In fact, this is not what most corporations do have even the expertise to look into. In the last 4 or 5 years, we have seen some movement, United Nations, specialized university and institutions that focus on forestry and ecosystem issues, them coming together. So there's a little bit of a movement, but this needs to be an important focal area that we just don't want to focus on carbon. We need to have a holistic picture in which landscapes, the environment in totality is looked at rather than just air quality. So it's a very important aspect. Otherwise, we will not make the progress that we hope or we think we should be making. The third is removal of piled up carbon. And what I mean by that is that there's no way that we can sustain that trajectory, that desired trajectory, unless we remove the carbon from the atmosphere that is already piled up there. It's already excessive. So even if we become perfect today, we are already bad. And so we need to remove piled up carbon. There are 2 ways to do that. One is what we call nature-based solutions. Broadly speaking, it means more trees. And the second one is, which I will talk about in a bit, which is a technology-based technological innovation. It's called direct air capture. Let me talk about afforestation first. Yes, more trees will be good. But the problem with more trees is very technical. First of all, if we start planting trees and they start to become kind of like plantation campaigns, then we will end up doing what we call monoculture, which is trees of the same type, and which goes back to this notion of a total approach to the environment. We need a variety of trees. We need biodiversity. And plantation campaigns rarely, specifically if they are sponsored by corporations as large scale, I'm talking about here millions of hectares of plantation, which only corporations can do. So monoculture is a big issue. The space is another issue. Where is that land available? And yeah, you can find that land in developing countries, but then that becomes again a developed versus developing country dilemma. Developed countries emit emissions and ask for land for plantation forestry in developing countries, which lead to what is my second to last point here, what we call green colonialism. Location is another important. Forests don't survive everywhere. all kind of forests are not the same. I'm not trying to get into the details of it. It can become overwhelming, but just to give you an idea about the dimensions of my proposed new paradigm. Location is important. Where do we do it? Do we do it in northern Canada, or do we do it in deserts of Africa or India or Australia, or where? And how would that be compensated with the mandates and the requirements of local communities and their own need to develop? Time is another issue. Planting a tree today and full sequestration of carbon, there's a 20 years lag, in many cases 15 years lag. So whereas we don't have that kind of a time if we go by that UN trajectory. So really this approach is limited. Monitoring and surveillance is another. I have myself seen numerous afforestation projects really where so much money has funneled, but really not even a single plant has been planted. And in cases where it has been, there are issues like double counting and those kind of things. So monitoring and surveillance is a big issue. So then if nature-based solutions is good, but it has problems, direct air capture is another one. It is an upcoming technology. It's very expensive, actually. But the idea is that we can create these huge mills that will directly suck the carbon from the air, and that carbon can then be used as industrial carbon. For example, Coca-Cola says that it can use it in making, calcium carbonate and all those kind of things. There are some startups in Canada and in a couple coming up in the US also. Carbon Engineering is one organization in Canada that I actually am quite familiar with their operations. But there are problems with this approach too. First of all, the most important issue is that it is so expensive that expanding the market is really a big issue. Very, very difficult. So now coming on to the last idea, which is the expansion of markets. Expanding customer base is extremely important, and it is not happening. You can go to any of the mainstream academic journals related to corporate sustainability or even corporate social responsibility. And there's this rosy picture that says that customers are willing to pay more, customers are interested in green products, and customers are just jumping up and down and wanting to embrace companies that are more sustainable. I argue it is really not the case. Yes, there are some customers. There's a small consumer base that do have the luxury to support this kind of a market that we have developed around green products. Majority are not. And this is not just my observation. There are research papers out there, but people don't want to read them, and because it is not a very convenient research path. So there are research papers, and I will be very happy to direct you to that literature where people have found that customers are actually talking about it, but there is such a huge intention and action gap that most of the consumers are not able to actually even purchase those for a variety of reasons. In many cases, it is affordability. In many cases, it is that the message is not coming across as persuasive. And in many cases, it is just because there are not kind of like sound policies that would connect the green product with the green consumer or the consumers as such. Promotion is one aspect that I have been focusing quite a bit on lately. So I will show you a few examples, and all of them drawn again from the United States, short videos, maybe one minute each, 4 or 5 of them, that there are some principles that we should keep in mind in order to make our promotion aspects around sustainability and green products and all that persuasive and compelling. First of those is tell a relatable story that speaks to both heart and mind. And somebody please let me know if you cannot hear what I will show here. Perhaps Professor Singhal would let me know if the sound is not coming through. Can you hear?
Yes, properly.
I believe in products that don't just clean, but are truly clean. The clean itself has no smell.
That clothes should smell like clothes, not perfume.
That babies should smell like babies.
That when I clean my home around my family, I shouldn't have to open the window first.
That with the right science, you can make products from plant-based ingredients instead of petrochemicals that work just as well as conventional brands.
I believe consumers have an absolute right to know what's in the products that they buy.
That our secret ingredient is that we have no secret ingredients.
And that our ingredient disclosure alone is not enough, but we must continue to advocate to make this the norm and not the exception.
That we can't live a healthy life on a sick planet.
I believe that business can be a powerful force for good on the earth.
The companies must think about people and the planet, as well as profit.
So why I showed this promotional video is that it is actually telling a story that speaks to both heart and mind. And that is very important to do. You saw a scientist, this lady there. You saw somebody who's shown as a father. You saw an environmental activist. You saw somebody who's doing lawn work and cleaning their homes. You saw a maid. So my point is that green consumerism story ought to be a story that is relatable to all and that touches upon both our heart and mind rather than just one of them. So you have to speak the language of science, but you have to speak the language of caring also. Generally, what I have seen is that this kind of branding, this kind of promotion is missing from sustainability discourse. It happens a little bit too preachy, if you will. I don't know if Professor Singhal knows it, but I grew up in around Meerut in UP. So there is one saying in our region which is something like "bahut bhashan dete hain." So this is what has become to sustainability. It has become a little bit too much of a bhashan, too much of a preachy idea. And that is what I'm trying to do through my research, is that make the discourse a little bit less preachy and more engaging. The second one is also related to the same aspect of not making it too much bhashanbaji, which is promote what people love, not what they hate. I don't know if this product has made the commercial that I'm going to show in a moment, if it has made any broad news in India. I'm sure business students and business professors would know it. But it is an idea of making essentially beef product without using beef. Take a listen. So Beyond Meat is one of the most successful examples of a very effective branding and public promotion of a environmental friendly product, which in this case is burger. Beyond Meat essentially means that we don't need to get the ingredients from cows, but they can come from the plants. They didn't get at all into this cow versus plant controversy. Zero. They don't even talk about that it is bad or anything. They just said that, okay, you like your beef taste or you like your burger taste, fine, go with that. But it can actually come from these other sources without compromising with the taste, without compromising with the caloric content and other ingredients. And it is such a huge success story. Look it up for yourself. One of the most successful IPOs in the recent years, and certainly the most successful, maybe other than Tesla, in the area of green consumerism or green product promotion. So my point is that we need to promote what people love, not what they hate, because that kind of a preachiness is not going to get us where we want to go. Excuse me. The third one is related to authenticity. Sometimes companies claim to be a little bit too much without being even average. Patagonia is an example of a company. It's an American apparel company, and they have been very pragmatic and very practical in terms of how much they claim. They say that, well, every time you make something, it is always harmful for the environment. It's bad. What we are doing is ours is less bad than our competition. So they are not saying ours is great. They are saying is that we are the best of the bad options. And I love it because this is a very, very transparent, very authentic, and for that matter, a very pragmatic messaging. So take a listen to this commercial also. This is one of my favorite ones.
Patagonia is a great example of a strong brand that has basically said, we're going to go as transparent as we can.
Anybody working in the environmental field knows if you're not talking about what's wrong, you're not telling the whole story.
You don't have to be worried about telling everybody of the bad things you're doing, as long as you say that we're working on these things. But if you try to be dishonest, try to hide it, it's going to come back and bite you in the
They did something a couple of years ago called the Footprint Chronicles, where they put up on their website the story of the products that they were selling.
It was one of the first really progressive approaches to transparency. Through their choosing, they came to people and they said, we're going to show you how our products are made. When I looked at it, it's not good news.
This is Patagonia, like the environmental outdoor brand, talking about, we put toxic chemicals on your jacket you're wearing.
And it's so common to say, oh, what's the challenge? What's the opportunity? It's like, no, it's bad. It's just bad. So we just laid it out there of here's what's good, here's what's bad, and then what we think. And it was a scary notion. If we put it out there, it turns a lot of confrontations into a conversation.
The consumer has proven that they don't expect perfection. Time and time again, when companies have used transparency right, the consumer hasn't looked at the truth and said, oh, it's not perfect enough, I'm moving on. They're very realistic about it.
I don't think advertising is enjoying the same luxury it once had. We're all skeptics today. We've all heard it far too many times. Clear is the new clever. And you need to be clear in your messages. Clever doesn't work anymore.
So the point of this commercial is one sentence takeaway. Be clear. Don't try to be clever. Consumers know it. There's so much skepticism of all these green claims. We know what companies are doing. Who are we kidding? You know, just signing a check at the end of the day, this Robin Hood approach to corporate sustainability. We know it. It's not working. So you be better transparent. And if we are really serious about making an impact, then let's have an honest conversation that we are trying. And it is sometimes technologically difficult, sometimes financially not viable, and sometimes it is not that consumers really care about it. But the point is that an honest reflection and discourse needs to evolve. Otherwise, we will continue to have this disjoint that corporate sustainability is booming and the environment is worsening, which is the irony which I started this presentation with. There are two more messages. I'm not going to show the video in the interest of time. The first one is that you need to relate your brand with a movement, a larger movement. and some companies do it better than the others. And finally, I would say that we should focus, and all these messages are coming together in that same one thing I said in my Meerut language, that bhashan mat dijiye, nudge, don't nag. You need to, nudging and nagging are two strategies that marketing people have looked at quite extensively at. I'm not an expert on that, but the point is that nudging is more helpful than telling people, do it. It is not how it is happening. Either you regulate, which is an effective nagging, or you just don't just pester them again and again. That's not going to work. So nudging is better. Just sensitize people. But again, we don't have time for these. If we were to follow that trajectory that I showed you, that blue line. So I'm not quite sure if this is really where we need to go. But overall, the point is that we need to expand the markets, and that is where I come back to again, that we need a cure. Collective carbon reduction, umbrella approach to mitigate environmental impact, removal of piled up carbon, expansion of markets. And thank you very much. Sorry, I'm already 2 minutes over time, but I hope that I gave you some ideas that can help, especially corporate sustainability scholars, in charting out the future research avenue. I'm available. Professor Singhal has my email. If there is any scholar who is interested in having conversations, or any student for that matter, we are always open to share whatever little we know. So thank you very much again for taking the time, and thank you again, Professor Singhal and Sharma, to invite me to share a little bit of what I know with all of you. Thank you.
A very thank you, Professor Dr. Rajat Panwar, for joining us today and sharing your invaluable insights and deliberation on the corporate sustainability needs paradigm shift. I believe all of us are immensely benefited from your deliberation, and all the research scholars are going to reach you out, particularly me, on the point that how nagging and nudging is quite different. So definitely we'll be reaching it out, and thank you for your immense very invaluable deliberations. Now, now I would like to invite Dr. Chetan GK, Conference Co-Chair and Chairperson Continuing Education, online courses, online MDPs, webinars, and other online activities, and Associate Professor Finance, to formally introduce our Director, Sir Professor Dr. Atmanand, for concluding remarks.
Yes, Professor. Thank you, Professor Sharma. So, Professor Dr. Atmanand is a renowned economist, administrator, and academician, currently working as a director of MDI Murshidabad and also acting as a director additional charge of MDI Gurgaon. He is also the independent director of Central Bank of India and PTC India Limited, and was also independent director of Steel Authority of India Limited. Dr. Atmanand's experience in teaching, research, and consultancy is more than 34 years. He is one of the longest serving deans of India. He has taken many new initiatives like the launch of MDI School of Energy Management, General of IMT Ghaziabad, and established MDIM, to name a few. He has contributed various national responsibilities as member of the State Finance Commission, Government of Bihar, Planning Commission, Government of India, and as a member of other task force, Cabinet Secretary, Government of India, member of Review Committee, Ministry of Ayush, Government of India, member of Advisory Committee, Ministry of Power, Government of India. Dr. Atmanand has authored 16 books and published more than 100 research papers in refereed national and international journals. He has undertaken several consulting assignments in the area of energy, insurance, infrastructure projects, social development, leadership, etc. He specialized in public enterprise management, management of energy and environment, power, oil and gas, steel, finance infrastructure projects, project finance, economic and business environment, public policy and management. His contribution of many years has been recognized in the form of awards like Rashtriya Gaurav Award for his excellence and contribution in the nation building, Indian Achievers Award for Corporate Leadership 2010, Economic Development Award for Excellence in Higher Education 2011, Exemplary Global Leadership Award 2010, and appreciation letters from various departments like the Ministry of Power, Government of India, and Steel Authority of India. Professor Dr. Atmanand's vision statement is to have a people around him who are thinkers and doers in one person. He spreads the policy of connect, nurture, and grow. Thank you. Over to Professor Sharma.
Now, I would like to invite Professor Dr. Birenchi Narayanswar, Conference Chair, Dean CE, and Professor Marketing, to deliver a concluding remark on on behalf of our Honorable Director, Sir, Professor Dr. Atman.
Thank you, Dr. Yuki. And I believe it is good morning, Dr. Rajat Panwar. So it's nice to hear you since last 45 minutes or so. It is a great opportunity to learn from you. And thanks for gracing this occasion. On the behalf of MDIM family, in the absence of our director, sir, let me take this opportunity to give you the concluding remark of this particular international conference, that is ICCBP 2021. Esteemed keynote speaker, Dr. Rajat Panwar, my faculty colleagues at MDI Murshidabad, all the participants, researchers, practitioners across the globe. As you know, this particular platform has been created to interact with the practitioners, researchers across the globe. And by keeping that in objective, we, the organizing team at MDI Murshidabad, initiated the process of organizing this conference way back. And really, it was a very dream project for all of us. And today, it is very painful for me to come to the end of this particular conference. But I can also tell you proudly that this conference will be a milestone or will be a historic moment in the era of MDI Murshidabad as well. ICCBP 2021 being inaugurated on 15th of on 19th of March 2021 by our Honorable Director, Dr. Professor Atmanand. And after that, we have series of chief guest keynote speakers. In the inaugural ceremony, the chief guest, Professor Dr. Niharika Vora, Vice Chancellor, Delhi Skill and Entrepreneurship University, New Delhi. She has graced the occasion. And after that, the keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Sanjay Mittal, the Vice Chancellor of Sambalpur University, has addressed the gathering, that is ICCBP 2021. We will put in a record that for ICCBP 2021, we have received 170 full papers, and we got requests many times from the potential authors to extend, and we follow a stringent process to shortlist the papers to present in this particular conference. And from out of 170, we have selected only 75 papers. These 3 days have been very good learning for all of us, as we heard from 7 keynote address, 12 track chair from IITs, IIMs, MDI Gurgaon, FMS, and others. The authors and the session chairs, the keynote speakers were from various countries like US, France, Indonesia, Sri Lanka, Oman, and many other countries. The day one started, after the inaugural ceremony, we all went back to the track one, that is the marketing area, where there are 7 papers are being presented. And most of the papers are, as you know, are related to online social media marketing, multi-sensory marketing, click to buy model. And this particular session chaired by Mr. Musharat Hussain, Head Leadership and Functional School, Maruti Suzuki India Limited, Gurgaon. Then it followed by track 1 of HRM, where we saw there are many papers which have been presented in this particular track with related to the practice which they do in the area of HR. It also highlighted during the track that the growing or the importance of employee well-being, which is growing concern and an absolute culmination of pandemic situation, coupled with fast changing technology disruption. Therefore, in this context, it is inevitable to discuss and debate and come to a conclusion in the HR area what kind of paradigm shifts are happening post-COVID. And this particular session being chaired by Professor Tanuja Sharma, Professor HROB, MDI Gurgaon. Then this followed by your keynote speaker, Dr. R.K. Singh, Professor MDI Gurgaon. He has deliberated his address to the August body on the topic digitalization of supply chain in Industry 4.0 environment. This followed by track share, supply chain management and BSc, where 6 papers were presented. 4 papers were from supply chain area and 2 were from the business strategy and entrepreneurship area. Then we are moving to track number 1, the finance area, where 8 papers were presented. And the paper are related to the impact of COVID on the Indian stock market, price prediction, reconditioning the impact of future market on price discovery, etc. And in the same line, we proceed, and this particular track being chaired by Dr. Sangram K. Jaina, Associate Professor, International Management Institute, Bhubaneswar. Then we started with day 2, the keynote address being given by Dr. Rajat Agrawal, Professor IIT Roorkee. The topic was innovation and entrepreneurship in higher education institutes, post-COVID-19 scenario. It was a wonderful session. Then after that, it followed by our track 2 BSc, where 7 papers were presented. 3 papers were on the basis on related to the theme of entrepreneurship and innovation challenges. 2 papers based on the CSR and sustainable ecosystem. And that gave a lot of knowledge to the August researchers, practitioners, and the authors, those who were presented during the session. And this particular track being chaired by Professor V.G. Venkatesh, Associate Professor, E.M. Normandy Business School, France, and Dr. Rajat Agrawal from IIT Roorkee. And with their expertise, they lightened the session, and there were a lot of learning for the audience as well. Then we went to track 2 in the area of HR and OB. So track 2 HR OB witnessed the growing concern of the way it is going for the augmented technology on the commitment, job satisfaction, mental health, everything is important. And during the post-COVID, these are the prime liners, you can say, where everybody has to take care about their health and well-beings. And this particular track being chaired by Professor Yanki, Faculty of Economics and Business, University of Indonesia. Then we are moving to the post-lunch of day 2, the keynote address being given by Dr. Abhiral Kumar Tiwari, Associate Professor, Rajgiri Business School, Kochi. And the theme was regime-dependent causality relationship between energy consumption and GDP growth evidence from OECD countries. It was really a learning experience for all of us to be a part of that particular track. And this track followed by the field track number 2. On the second day, we are happy to include around 6 papers, those were presented in this particular track. The papers were mostly related to merger and acquisition, IPO, pricing, and other financial related issues. And this particular track was chaired by Professor Abhiral Kumar Tiwari of Rajgiri Business School, Kochi, who guided the participants on possible improvements. I'm pretty sure that the insight given by Professor Tiwari will be helpful for the authors to improve their papers. Then in the area of marketing, the track 2 was conducted on the second day of this ICCBP 2021. 6 papers were presented in this marketing track, aligning to this fact Some of the notable themes were repurchase intention on e-commerce sites and digital healthcare services. And we are honored to have Professor Vijita Agrawal from Guru Gobind Singh Indraprasth University, Kashmiri Gate, New Delhi, who applaud the participants for addressing the relevant concerns during the theme of COVID-19. In the last day, that is today, that is 21st of March 2021, we started our day with the keynote speaker, Professor P.C. Vishwal, Professor MDI Gurugram. The topic was exchange rate stability and intervention through derivative markets. It was really indeed a learning session for all of us where people learn more about derivative markets, and he also chaired the session and given a lot of wonderful feedback to increase the scalability of the paper, to improve the possible improvements can be done in the area of research, those who, the paper those were being presented during that particular track. Then the track 3 in the area of HR and case studies. The third track of HROB could witness potential papers that had rigor and depth in their research studies. It typically outlined the necessity of employees' disposition manifested in the grit and perseverance to efforts at the individual level as one of the potential predictors in determining the job embeddedness amongst challenges posed by COVID-19. And it also focused on the technological disruptions which is happening due to this COVID-19. In the light of the theoretical and managerial implications that evolve from the well-researched reports presented in this particular track, it is suggested that organizational initiative at the policy level and consequent execution at the grassroots level may resolve some of the individuals and organizational concerns. However, an individual predisposition that plays a pivotal role, and this will definitely help at the micro level for any organization to cope with. And this is a very good learning for all the authors, those who are the part of this particular track. And this particular track being chaired by Professor Ravindra Pradhan, Associate Professor, School of Humanity and Science, IIT Kharagpur. Post-lunch day 3, the keynote address given by Dr. Ramendra Singh, Associate Professor, IIM Calcutta. His topic was business disruption and changing business paradigms. We were there completely for all the sessions, and really a wonderful learning in the area of marketing and how this business disruption happens over the time during and post-COVID era that has been clearly visualized through this track when we are listening to the authors, those who are presenting their paper for this particular track. And these tracks papers are primarily addressing with respect to the e-pharmacy, consumer shopping behavior, preferably online, customer experience during COVID-19. This track also witnessed 2 papers in the IT domain as well. So they talk about the m-commerce transactions and the top management commitment. So towards the end of this track, Professor Ramendra Singh, who has given a concrete and right kind of feedback to improve or to address the concerns which being raised by Dr. Ramendra Singh, to improvise the papers so that the author can learn many things while inculcating all those which has been lined by Professor Ramendra Singh during his chairing the session. Then the last session, we're talking about the track 4 of finance. On the third day of post-lunch session, ICCBP 2021, 6 papers were presented out of 6 submissions made in the 4th finance track. The themes of the paper were merger acquisition, heuristic biasness, very interesting concept rather when it comes to mutual funds, external debt and economic growth, NPAs, green finance. So they took some emerging topics and very beautifully presented by all the authors, all the delegates. And this particular track being chaired by Dr. Angela, Faculty of Finance, Faculty of Management Studies, Delhi, who encourage all the contributors with their research insights with the possible improvements to their research. As you rightly know, the valedictory ceremonies we are in, and the keynote address being given by Dr. Rajat Panwar, Associate Professor, Walker College of Business, US, and his topic was corporate sustainability needs a paradigm shift. It is not only about reading 5-6 pages, but which are very close to our heart as a management professors. And we are indebted to all the track shades, keynote speakers, and all the people directly and indirectly involved. Not last but not the least, all the authors, those who took all the pain for presenting their full-length paper in this conference. And from the core of my heart, as a conference chair, I thankful to all my organizing team members, practitioners, teaching, non-teaching staffs, and my fellow colleagues at MDI Murshidabad, and all the authors across the globe for choosing this platform to showcase their research capabilities. With this, I come to the end of this concluding remarks with respect to this ICCBP 2021. Now I over to Dr. Yukti for further proceeding. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, Professor Aswar, for delivering such a comprehensive concluding remark. On the behalf of ICCBP, I also extend heartfelt thank you to our Honorable Director, Sir, Professor Dr. Atmanand, for his immense blessing and being instrumental in this conference during the unprecedented time through his stewardship, through his vision, commitment, guidance, and relentless support. Every celebration is an experience. The external fades away, and the internal lingers and echoes in the most depth of our heart. We are reminded that that event like this one are milestone on the journey of life and reminders of God's fidelity all through. As we come close to a valedictory ceremony, I would like to invite Dr. Neeraj Singhal, Conference Chair and Assistant Professor, Strategic Management, to propose a vote of thanks. Professor, you need to just unmute yourself. You're not audible.
Yeah, thank you. So thanks a lot, Professor Yukti. And as Professor Sohar has mentioned, that today is the valedictory session for the ICCBP 2021, but it's a beginning of the new relationships with the authors, researchers, and delegates for the future endeavors. Now I, Dr. Neeraj Singhal, along with my team members, Professor Viranchi Narayan Swar, Professor Chetan GK, Professor Niharika Gan, Professor Yukti Sharma, on behalf of the ICCBP 2021 and on behalf of the MDI Murshidabad family, we would like to thank our patron ICCBP 2021, our Honorable Director, Professor Dr. Atmanand, for his continuous support, guidance, and motivation for making this event a grand success. I would like to thanks to our conference advisory team, the one who is to be instrumental from the day one we have conceptualized this idea of organizing this conference. Professor Dr. Naresh K. Malhotra, Professor Emeritus from Georgia Institute of Technology, Professor Dr. Niharika Bora, Vice Chancellor, Delhi Skill and Entrepreneurship University, New Delhi, Professor Dr. Sanjeev Mittal, Vice Chancellor, Sambalpur University, Professor Dr. R.K. Mittal, Vice Chancellor, Chaudhary Bansilal University, Bhiwani, Professor Dr. D.P. Goyal, Director, IIM Shillong, Professor Anand Upadhyay, Director, College of Banking, Financial Studies, Muscat, Professor Rajesh Panda, Director, Symbiosis Institute of Business Management, Mr. Musharrat Hussain from Maruti Suzuki India Limited, Professor Justin Paul from the University of Puerto Rico, USA, Professor Pratap Biswal, Dean Research and Accreditation, and Professor Accounting and Finance from Management Development Institute, Gurugram, Dr. Rajat Agrawal, Professor and Associate Dean, Department of Management Studies, IIT Roorkee, Professor Rajat Panwar, Associate Professor, Department of Management, Walker College of Business, Appalachian State University, Dr. V.G. Venkatesh, Associate Professor, EM Normandy Business School, France. Dr. Ramendra Singh, Associate Professor, IIM Calcutta. Dr. Aviral Tiwari from Rajgiri Business School. A special thanks to the keynote chairs, Professor Tanuja Sharma, Professor HR and OB from MDI Gurgaon, Dr. R.K. Singh, Professor, MDI Gurgaon, Dr. Sangram Kesri Jena, Associate Professor, IMI Bhubaneswar, Professor Yanki from University of Indonesia, Professor Vijita Agrawal from GGSIP University, New Delhi, Professor Ravindra Pradhan from School of Humanities and Science, IIT Kharagpur, and Professor Anjala Kalsi from Faculty of Management Studies, University of Delhi. Thanks to all the conference participants, those who make that event a grand success, and without them, we cannot imagine to conduct such kind of the event. A very sincere thanks to all our faculty and non-faculty colleagues from MDI family for their continuous support and motivation. A very special thanks to my all team members, Professor Viranchi Narayan Swar, Professor Chetan K, Professor Niharika, and Professor Yukti. No event can be successful without a very strong support, without a very strong administrative support. On behalf of our whole team, I would like to thanks to our registrar, Shri Devashish Gupta ji, the other team members, those who are from the administration, Mr. Devpriya Oja, Mr. Malay Bhattacharya, Mr. Kuluri Prasad ji. Thanks to Shri Somdeep ji, PS to the director. A very special thanks to our IT support team, because in this pandemic situation, for conducting the virtual events, there is a very strong support. IT support is required. So thanks to Mr. Joydeep Mukherjee, Mr. Averup, Mr. Tapas, Mr. Injitjeet, and other members of the IT team. No event can be made successful without a strong support of the students. So I would like to thanks a lot to the student team, those who were involved into that. A very special thanks to Kriti, Sakshi, Nainika, Sumeda, Dhanya, Vihang, Anik, Ravi, Nilesh, and Sachin, those who are being involved from last 3 days in making this event a great success. And thanks to all our students, those who are attending this particular specific sessions and make the event a grand success. In last, I would like to thanks each and every person, those who are involved into this event and making this particular specific event a success. Kindly pardon me if I have forgotten any name to include in this particular specific list. So once again, thanks to each and every one, and have a very nice evening. And those who are from other part of the globe, a very nice, a wonderful day ahead. So thanks to each and everyone on behalf of this whole team of the ICCBP 2021. And a very special thanks to Professor Rajat for making the valedictory a kind of the great success with his presence. So soon we are going to release that certificates. Maybe in a week time we'll release that certificates, and soon we are going to come with a wonderful publications out of that. And there are a few papers, those who are going to be you can say suggested to some of the journals with which we have actually collaborated. So thanks to each and every one. Yeah, over to Professor Yukti.
Thank you, Professor, for such a elaborative vote of thanks. So on this note, let's conclude a remarkable, memorable, and a knowledgeable valedictory ceremony of ICCBP. On the behalf of MDI, IIM family and organizing committee ICCBP 2021, we sincerely thank the dignitaries on being with us in this evening and enlightening us with their enthusiastic remarks. I would like to also express my heartfelt gratitude to our Honorable Director, sir, all the dignitaries, our esteemed keynote speaker, Professor Rajat Panwar, track chairs, paper presenters, faculty, non-faculty colleagues, and dear students for their wholehearted support that rendered towards the success of this valedictory session. Thank you very much. Wishing you all a wonderful evening and a very fun-filled day ahead. Thank you so much.
Sir.
Namaste, Rajat ji.
Sir, namaskar.
Okay, thanks everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Thank you.